Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily update for March 21st, 2022. Well, as we continue to see this drive for war, and all you have to do is watch the Sunday blab shows and watch the congressional figures and the spokesman for the Biden administration talking about the need to stop Russia, the need to prepare other defensive capabilities, build up the Ukrainian army, and so on. The war narrative is being shaped by think tanks and a lying media. And I want to look at a couple of aspects of this today, starting with the fact that we're being told that Ukraine is a democracy, and we're fighting for their freedom. Well, the media is not telling you that as of yesterday, the government of Ukraine shut down 11 opposition parties, including one party, which is a leading opposition party with 44 seats in its parliament. That's 1 out of every 10 seats. It's been shut down. The opposition media has been shut down. Is that democratic? Well, what else is the media lying to you about? We hear that Putin is completely crazy by saying that there's a need for denazifying Ukraine, that either there aren't Nazis in Ukraine or that they're very insignificant. Well, the neo-Nazis themselves will tell you that without their role at the Maidan in 2014, there would never have been a successful coup, because they were the ones that fired the shots that created the uproar that led to the overthrow of the existing democratically elected government. There's one observer named Aris Rousinos, who put out a blog piece the other day essentially saying that the Nazi issue is not a significant one. He wrote about the Nazi groups for an article in Harper's Magazine in 2019. And he wrote that since 2014, that is the time of the Maidan coup, the Ukrainian state, quote, has provided funding, weapons, and other forms of support for militias, including neo-Nazi ones. He said when he interviewed them, they were, quote, all quite open about their ideology and their plans for the future, unquote. Well, why deny then that the Nazis are playing a leading role? Well, that denial plays into undermines or ignores, I should say, one of the underlying dynamics of the crisis in Ukraine right now. And that is that Zelensky, when he ran for president, pledged that he would fulfill the Minsk II agreement of negotiating with the ethnic Russian populations of eastern Ukraine to give them more autonomy and to get rid of the laws that were the anti-Russian laws passed after the coup. He went there and met with them and tried to push this through, but he was stopped by the neo-Nazis, one of whom, the leader of the neo-Nazis, Dmitry Yarosh, who's a confidant and advisor of officials in the military and defense and security forces. Yarosh said, if Zelensky tries to implement Minsk II, quote, he will hang on some tree in Kiev, unquote. So there was a threat to Zelensky's life from these networks. And they have enormous importance because they're armed and they're willing to kill. So why does the Biden administration reject Putin's call for security guarantees, including denazification as part of the protection for the people of eastern Ukraine? Why are they covering up for the role of the neo-Nazi militia in killing the civilians in eastern Ukraine? Well, the question might also be asked, why are they claiming that there are neo-Nazis running wild among the opposition in the United States and using security state measures, surveillance and others, to spy on them against their domestic opponents? How is it that they can find so-called Nazis in the United States where they don't exist, but not in Ukraine, where they're openly parading with swastikas and torchlight parades? What this shows is that the issue in Ukraine is bigger than Ukraine, that Ukrainians are being sacrificed for the greater cause, and that greater cause is the destruction of Russia. Why? And this is where we are pretty much unique in our analysis of the situation. The threat to the ruling elites of the West is that Russia and China do not accept their destruction of the concept of sovereignty. They will not submit their nations to the dictatorship, the global financial dictatorship, which the Davos crowd is trying to implement right now. The City of London directed Davos billionaires are pushing for a great reset and a Green New Deal that will go at the same time they're continuing a bailout of bankrupt financial institutions that they control. The Russians and Chinese don't believe in that. They believe that there should be investment, there should be credit created, but not as fiat money to be handed over to speculators to protect their worthless financial portfolios, but that credit should be directed to physical production, goods production, power production, transportation development, manufacturing, upgrading of agriculture, whereas the Davos billionaires are content to continue to loot to keep their lifestyle intact while destroying the economy that's necessary to sustain population on the planet. There are tens of trillions of dollars that have gone to the speculators, but nothing to rebuild U.S. manufacturing, nothing to help homeowners and farmers who can't get the prices they need to sustain their living. The Green New Deal now is cutting off funds for oil and gas exploration at a point when we see hyperinflation because the speculators are driving the prices up while they're cutting off Russian oil and gas and shutting down exploration and development in the United States and the West. Now, Lyndon LaRouche has always pointed out that economic and financial collapse lead to war. Not because that's an axiom per se, but because those who loot are willing to kill to protect their system, to protect their otherwise bankrupt system. And that's why their servants, such as the Bidens and the Blinkens, the Boris Johnsons and Liz Truss, and all of the talking heads on the media who push their narratives, that's why they won't tell you the truth. Because the truth is that we're all being sacrificed so that the billionaires can sustain their lifestyles and their financial assets, which are largely the result of using governments to loot the populations while directing credit to them so they can play their games. Now, my organization has been fighting against this since the 1960s, and we're now making much more significant headway worldwide, including among Americans who are sick and tired of being lied to, but don't really know exactly what to do. And they're throwing all kinds of ideas out there. But we have a program that LaRouche developed 40 years ago, 50 years ago, of investment in the physical economy based on the principles of the American system, which includes not allowing corporate cartels to run the government, but the government has a right to regulate the private sector for the general welfare. And what does that mean? It means credit is available for producers, not speculators. You want to speculate? Go ahead. Use your own funds. If you lose it, you eat the losses. That's what Glass-Steagall represents. But we need a banking system which provides credit for entrepreneurs, for scientific investigation, technological development, so that we can increase the productivity of the entire workforce, which is how you have real prosperity. I'm asking you to join our mobilization to win this fight. We're building a conference that will take place on April 9th that is committed to establishing a security architecture and a financial architecture that represents the interests of sovereign nation states and the people who live in them. This is what's necessary to defeat the lying media and to take the power away from the oligarchs who have no right to run governments. They're not elected. They've put in governments that will do their bidding, but will not do the bidding of the people. That has to end. Go to the bottom of the description section to get a link to the invitation to our April 9th conference and help us build it, organize for it, and become part of our movement. Thanks for joining me today. Share this video, and I'll be back again tomorrow.